We're live. Hi everybody. I'm Stacy Nell, the Executive Director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission. We're starting a lot closer to noon because I was waiting for the tornado sirens and I didn't hear any. And I'm like, that's strange. So hello everyone. I am thrilled today to be joined with Dr. Donetta Watson of the Black Mastermind Group in Wyandotte County. Hi, Dr. Watson. How are you today?
Hi, Stacy. I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. So this is a part of like a little short mini series I've been doing with um, supporting Black entrepreneurs, economic development. Next week, we're going to talk about access to capital. We've all sort of been talking about access to capital and how to help Black entrepreneurs in the state. And so, Doctor, excuse me, if I'm going to take the time to get a doctoral degree, I'm going to have my children will be calling me doctor. So, Dr. Watson, let me not shirk on my responsibilities. Dr. Watson has come on today to talk to us about her program in Wyandotte County. But let me just read a little bit about her. Donetta Watson is known as the launch strategist. She is a seasoned entrepreneur, business professional, community activist, and ex-government manager for the United States Census Bureau as a management and supervisory statistician, overseeing 3 medical research studies for the CDC in 6 states. She was responsible to guide the data collection efforts through over 200 field and supervisory staff while managing a budget of $1.5 million concurrently. Dr. Watson has over 38 years of entrepreneurial experience. Her background includes a doctorate in entrepreneurial studies, a master's in quality systems management, and she's a graduate of the Joseph Business School and a former administrator and an adjunct professor of 13 years. I'm getting my mouth around all those words. Today, Dr. Watson can be found guiding the National Black Mastermind Group in Wyandotte County, among other places. I'm sure we'll get to that. The Bridge Builder Coach and the Business Mastery Institute, which she founded in 2015. The Black Mastermind Group is a 501c3 membership-based educational coaching development and funding initiative, which offers the Business Mastery 8-week bootcamp and the Business Mastery 4-month Train the Trainer, and the Business Mastery program, which is a 12-month accelerated business program. She calls it the real road to success. And I think that's how I sort of first got to know you through those programs. So I definitely want to back up and talk about those. The Black Mastermind Group is designed to create strategies that start, stabilize, sustain, and scale businesses in the Black entrepreneurial community. The organization works collaboratively with community leaders, business coaches, trainers, educators, and business leaders to teach entrepreneur financial literacy and business strategies to help the Black entrepreneurial community secure funding. So thank you, Dr. Watson, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here to share with you about what we do.
Yes. And my first question is always, what are you having for lunch?
I'm rarely a lunch eater, so my staff will always tell you I don't very rarely eat during the morning time. So today I am having orange juice for lunch.
Okay. Some vitamin C.
Yeah, I'm not a real foodie, so it doesn't really matter. I can eat some crackers and chips and cheese, and I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I find myself having to eat lunch like at 11. So I had half a sandwich, my leftover from my daughter went to like Panera or something yesterday, and I took her leftovers and some chips. It gets the job done. It gets the job done. It's nothing fancy.
We had our mastermind session yesterday, so we have some vegetable fettuccine, and a salad in the refrigerator. And so we have one of those community refrigerators. So who gets there first gets it.
I see. If I was in that, I would have housed it already. It would have been gone. I would have already eaten it.
We have someone coming in very soon that will probably take all of it. So
gotcha.
If there's anything left later, I might eat something.
Well, thank you for joining us. And one of the questions I always like to ask people is how they get into the work that they're in, right? And so we've had like Mark Dupree's come on and talk about how he got into his lawyering and all that stuff. So how did you come? What is your background? Did you always want to be a business person? Tell us about who you are.
When I was in 3rd grade, I've always been a very creative person, very talented, which is a dangerous thing. We'll talk about that later. But I made pot holders and aprons at Christmas time. And my teachers saw what I was doing in our crafting class, and they were shocked and said, "Will you make us one? We'll pay you." And man, the light bulb ding, ding, ding. At 3rd grade, I made money of my own. And I was just amazed that number one, they liked it to the point that they would want one themselves. And number two, they'll pay me to make it. And the bug was, I think it bit me real good then, because from that point, I would make things and sell them. And I did that growing up. All my younger years, I was a party girl. So I was the person that threw the house parties $2 a head all through high school. And everybody came to my parties. And so I had my first job at 12 as babysitting, my second job at 15, worked in the mall. Told them I was 15, but I'm telling them I was 16. I was really 15. And worked in the theater. So making my own money became really fun to me, and doing things to make money, creating things. And so I painted, I drew, I'm more of a sketch painter, and I was always creating things. And so over the years, that was always, people knew me. I was that creative person that always created something. And that was my journey into entrepreneurship at an early age. My mom was a professional caterer, and I was the person that did her setup and her breakdown, helped her a lot. We, as children growing up, we were hired. We were those voluntold staff, we
Right.
volunteered to work in the family business. So we helped mom set up, and I was set up and breakdown. So I would set up, I would do all the decor, all the design. That was my job. And it turned into a career as a wedding and event planner.
Okay.
And I was highly known as the wedding planner in the city. My nephew called me the Black Martha Stewart, because that was what I did. Whatever was needed, if it didn't exist, I made it. And so we did a lot of creative things for a lot of clients. And so I was well known as the wedding planner.
Was that here in Kansas, or was that someplace else?
Here in Kansas.
Okay.
And so I always, because of the family business, did weddings and events on evenings and weekends. My mom was a caterer, and then eventually I became the planner and decorator, and I hired my mom. My daughter was a professional photographer, went to college, graduated with a degree in photography. She was a photographer. And so we covered the city and did incredible events and incredible things, and became very active in my church, was coordinating and bringing in celebrities and entertainers and ministers and speakers. And that's what we did. And it was what we were known as doing. I never looked at it as a business. It's just what we did on the side. While I was working in government and doing all the other things I did in my professional career, this is what we did on the side as a family, helping mom, and her business turned into a business for me. And I enjoyed it so much that I literally, whatever she needed done, I did. And consequently, because of the creativeness, I became a florist. I learned self-taught and did an incredible job. And I self-taught as an interior designer and did a lot of design work throughout the city, designed churches, restaurants, did a lot of work for hotels, did a lot of work in different event venues until I got my own venue. In 2012, I was still working for the government, and I'm full-time employee, entrepreneur at night and weekend. So that's what we call a dualpreneur.
Okay.
Full-time in the daytime. Soon as I left my job, the business kicked on.
Because I'm like, so all this time you're still working for the government.
Oh, yes. I'm working for the government, and whatever career I had, this is just what we did as a family. And then in roughly about 1990, a little bit earlier than that, my God, it's about 1980s, I really got serious about this thing that I was doing. And in 1998, I went back to school, and I had my master's degree, was working for the government, and I knew I was an entrepreneur. And so I knew that there was more to this, that this was, I wasn't just good at this, I was really good at it. And I wanted to go further with it. So that's when I went back to business school, because I really wanted to own my own venue. And I wanted to make sure that, we had worked in every venue in the city, and man, midnight, you had to be out. And we wanted not to be so stressed out and packing, stressed out and setting up. And I really wanted to take this thing to the next level. So that's when I went to business school. I had tried my hand at some different variations of business, and I felt like there was something always missing in my own background and my own aptitude or acumen that would make me felt like I really knew what I was doing. And so that's when I went back to business school, and I really enjoyed owning that entrepreneurship spirit. And that's what Joseph Business School taught us. You know, the business was spiritual, and there were spiritual components, because it is from your within that you become an entrepreneur. You're taking a gift, talent, and ability you've been blessed and given to produce something and bring it to the marketplace. And I really wanted to understand who I was as an entrepreneur and what I was called to do. And we believe business is a calling. It's not something you decide to do. It's already inside of you. And that was the beginning of my really stepping full into entrepreneurship. So that was 1990, pardon me, I'm so sorry. That was 2008, 2009. I want to make sure I got my years right, because I've been in this place for such a long time. I just did it because I was gifted and I was talented to do it, but I didn't know anything about business. And so the first full-blown business that I started, you know, got tripped up over the financial stuff, things on the financial sector that I really didn't understand. Started the second business model, same thing happened. So after a while, I'm like, okay, there's something missing, something not clicking in this arena. And so in 2012, the federal government redesigned the Census Bureau and closed 6 offices nationwide. And the office in Kansas City closed. And man, I heard the Holy Spirit just as clear as my name say, okay, now you can do this. All of my children were grown. My last daughter had gone off to college. She actually had gotten married, and I had purchased everything for her wedding to use to launch my business. And I had everything necessary. And I was on this journey anyway. I knew by then I was an entrepreneur. I needed to prepare. So that was 1998 when I went to class. She got married in 2011. 2012, the office closed. 2012.
No excuses.
Yes, no excuses. And it was my way out, because as long as I was committed to do the job, I would still be there at the job if the job was still here in Kansas City. But when they asked me to move to a different city, move to Chicago, I was like, that's not part of my plan. You know, my daughter's getting married and I'm 5 years away from full retirement. No way am I going to take that step. So I decided it was time for me to leave the federal government, which at that time, everybody thought I was crazy to leave the government. You know, who else would give you a 6-figure job to do what you do? But it was time. It was time for me to do what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I had been saving for a very long time to do it. I was sure that I was an entrepreneur and just needed all conditions to be right for me to step out into it. And I did. In 2012, the office closed. December 31st, 2012, the office closed. January 31st, 2013, went right into my first building. February 2013, second building. June 2013, third building. That I wouldn't recommend anyone do.
There's a comment, someone from on the Facebook page has said that it's God's timing.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was his timing, and I had to wait for that timing because I was a mother first, and I had 3 children. My commitment was to make sure that my children got a good life and had the right pathway. And as often as I would try to start, something just wasn't right. Back I would go. And so once I realized that I was close to retirement age, that I can put this on a different pathway, do what I felt was my first requirement and my first calling as a wife and a mother. And when my last daughter graduated from college, I was ready. And God said, nope, not time yet. And when they closed that office,
there you
and
go.
She was getting married, that was my clear road. It was my time.
So I want to talk about Black Mastermind Group. So when did that start?
Black Mastermind Group started in 2015. Now, I was already involved with Joseph Business School. I was already an adjunct professor. I was an administrator over the school in Kansas City. And I realized that because I was involved in so many things entrepreneurial, a lot of people were calling me and asking me questions. And I had an open door policy, and other entrepreneurs would show up in my office and would kind of go over the problems and the things that they were facing. And I realized that there were a lot of us out there going through the same things. But because entrepreneurship causes us to be in a silo where we very seldom get to go to things and spend time, especially if we are what we call now COOs, chief only operator in the business, then you do not have the luxury to leave your business and go to events and activities and trainings and participate in things that might help nourish you as an entrepreneur. And so when we're in that silo, we are going through things that we feel like I'm the only one. No one else is experiencing what I'm experiencing as an entrepreneur, but in actuality, we all were in the same boat. So I'm hearing conversations and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is too common. It's too many of Black entrepreneurs going through the same thing. That's not coincidental. There's something wrong. And I knew that there was something missing on our journey. And I kept hearing the same thing. I would interview entrepreneurs. I started a talk show on Facebook as well, and where I would physically go to the business, sit, because I knew that there was our community doesn't have an outlet anymore. So we are driving by businesses that we're not aware a Black entrepreneur owns it. So I would go to that business and turn on my camera and Facebook session. I could get in the beginning 10,000 people to jump on within minutes and learn about a Black business in the community or in the state that they didn't know about. As I traveled, I would turn my camera on and I would interview entrepreneurs across the nation. And Stacey, the story was the same. It was always the same. Now, we have a tendency to tell the pretty story when the camera's on, but when the camera would turn off, there was never a time that I would leave an entrepreneur's business that they had not cried on my shoulder, or he had not sat with me and said, Dr. Watson, this is real. I wasn't Dr. Watson then. I was just, Donetta. This is hard. This isn't working. What am I going to do? That was a consistent thread across all the cities, all the states, all the entrepreneurs' businesses as I went through. Then I began to say, God, there's something missing in our journey. What are we missing? There's something we don't know about business, that we're all in the same situation. Unsure if we're going to keep our doors open the next 24 hours. Unsure if we're going to be able to make payroll. Things are not working well. And what we thought was our greatest dream has really been a nightmare. After hearing that consistently for several years, I too was going through the same thing. I had taken $350,000 of my money and started that business. And within a year, I had went through 350, well, 2 years. And going into that third year, it was a nightmare. And I kept hearing the same thing. And I'm like, I had money. I'm a saver. So I'd saved well over $150,000, got $100,000 severance package, $25,000 by vacation. And all that time I had built, worked so much in the government, didn't get a vacation. I just let my time build up. That money was what I used to start the business. And I did what every sound financial person will tell an entrepreneur, never do again. Do not bootstrap your own money to start a business.
Okay.
But we are not told that. We're not told that in our community. And very seldom do we get to sit at a table with very seasoned, very wise, financially secure entrepreneurs.
So I'm looking at the time. So when you started the Black Mastermind group, tell us about the boot camp programs and tell us about what you're teaching and training people to do.
When we started the program in 2012, it was just a few people, a couple of other people that are working in entrepreneurship right now. I was assembling people that knew something about business to start teaching other Black entrepreneurs about business. It wasn't until my whole, world began to pull together that I realized there's a lot of people out there need to be taught what I'm learning. I became a branch manager of a lending group. My first week of training really opened my eyes. I would have never been able to access capital. No matter how much money I had, it was because of how I started the business and the way I structured it. It was a non-fundable business model in a non-fundable business industry. So here I was running a business that could never access capital. And what I learned in my 2 years of being a branch manager put me on a course of what I'm teaching today, because our community does not know the rules of lending. Our community does not know predominantly about business credit. Our community doesn't know about how to become fundable. And that missing link that I kept saying, something's not right. Something's missing for us. And there's something happening that we're not in privy to, because it's not uncommon to hear the same thing over and over again.
So when you say fundable, what do you mean? Like, because there might be people who are watching now, or who, if this might get, sent to them later, and they might be in a business that's struggling. So when you say non-fundable, what exactly are you talking about?
Well, there's certain industries that lending communities won't lend to. Bankers and lending community will not lend to business models that cannot meet a certain revenue requirement on an annual basis. So you must maintain a level of revenue every month, every year, that makes you a fundable business model. So I was in a business model. Everyone knows the wedding industry is 6 to 8 months long. So because it was a seasonal industry, it's non-fundable. The majority of my revenues were, we live by the scripture, consider the end in all of his ways, as he stores up in summer for winter. So during the summer, we made all of our revenue. During the winter, we made no revenue. So I was literally self-funding the business for 4 to 6 months of every year based on how long the winters were. Well, my revenues were not consistent. I would never have qualified for capital. Yeah. There's a lot of things that our community isn't aware. There are certain industries lenders do not loan money to: beauticians, barbers, daycare centers. Those that are cash-based business models are non-fundable business models.
So if a person wants to open a salon, though, do you have advice for that person?
Oh, yes, we do. We have to shift out of the cash-based business model. You have to have documentation of revenues. If you're bringing in cash, which predominantly barbers, beauticians, daycares are cash-based, when they bring in cash, the cash isn't documented. And if there's no documentation verifying revenues, the business is put in a category of non-fundable. So we have to change how the business is being operated. Even though the customer base brings cash predominantly, all cash has to go into some type of banking or fundable strategy so it can be documented. So we have to get them out of operating with cash. Gotcha. Once revenues are documented and business expenses are documented, there's proof that the business model is meeting revenue requirements.
So if that's one thing you say that might not be readily apparent in our community in terms of how to show that a business has consistent revenues in order to get funding, is there another thing that you've noticed across the board that, I don't want to give away your 8-year plan, right? I mean, but if someone's listening to this going, oh,
yes,
gosh, I never thought about that, right? Because I'm like, yeah, if I have a salon out of my house, a lot of times I know the person who does my braids, I pay her in cash.
And home-based business models are predominantly non-fundable business models,
right?
And so these are things our community doesn't know. And oftentimes, what we're doing is running a hobby, a hookup, or a hustle. Because in the category of what is business, what's fundable is how you operate the business, whether or not you're maintaining business structure and strategies that meet the minimum requirements. One of the major things is that most of our community isn't aware of the importance of having and so we tell people, just start the business. Sole proprietorship is the worst business model you can be in.
Okay.
It's non-fundable.
Hang on, say that one more time.
Sole proprietorship is the worst business model you can be in. So it's non-fundable. And
what's a better way to approach it then?
Well, you have to be an LLC. There's no other way to approach it. The lending world, the business world says it's not a valid business model if you're a sole proprietor. You cannot access business credit. You are non-fundable if you're a sole proprietor. It's just how business is done today.
But so many of our businesses in our community might be sole proprietorships.
The majority of our businesses are sole proprietors.
So here's the thing. I don't, like I said, I don't want you to give away all your secrets now.
This is
so I'm going to put in the chat the website to the Black Mastermind group. So if you are in Wyandotte County or Johnson County or someplace close where you can get to Wyandotte County.
Well, and actually, we're in the state of Kansas now. So we want to talk about the Business Mastermind Institute. So from all of that, and teaching business school. I've been teaching entrepreneurship for Joseph Business School for 13, 14 years before all of this started. And taking the traditional business information and matching it with what we should know as a Black entrepreneur, that's our position from how we teach and where we teach. Because our community has the least opportunity of being fundable than any other ethnic group. Let's just tell the truth. SBA loans are not to Black people. We are the lowest number in the ethnic breakdown of SBA loans. And that's because what we're starting, what we're creating, we're not positioned to access capital. We teach people how to access capital. We teach them everything they need to know about business structure that helps them create a fundable business model. The structure has to be right. So it's not just that we can't be sole proprietors. If you are an LLC, you also have to have a Dun and Brad. You also have to operate from business credit. There's a pathway to access capital. The bank is the last place you go in the 4 steps of creating a fundable business model. You have to know there's a time period connected to each level in accessing capital. So you can't start the business today and go get a loan tomorrow. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And our community does that. And so I have friends that are bankers that say, oh my God, I just cringe every time a Black person comes into the bank because they're not ready and they don't know what they're doing. And so I said, okay, then let us help you. Let us take that step and let's get them through the process so they do know how to access capital. And when they show up, they're ready.
So in your boot camps, you have an 8-week, well, I just read it in the introduction. You have an 8-week, I know you have a 12-month.
We have an 8-week, a 4-month, and then our last program culminates and it's 12 months that they have gone through this whole pathway. So when we started, we were 12 months. We wanted to get everybody in the process and move them in 12 months. And we realized entrepreneurs are not going to give you 12 months of their time. So we broke it down into smaller chunks. We start with a boot camp, which is covering everything that the business and lending world says you ought to know about business. If you say you are an entrepreneur, some of those things the IRS says, you ought to know this because you are an entrepreneur. You are required to know this. Then we go, once a person graduates from the boot camp, the next program they can enroll in is called our Launchpad. That is creating duplication or multiplication processes where whether it's franchise or creating partnership strategies to open up another location, it is growth that we do on paper first. Everything we do is on paper first. Then you implement. And what we often do is we start, then we find out we're in trouble. Then we run around trying to get help. We want to catch entrepreneurs before they start making those mistakes that are costly mistakes. So then the final program is the masterclass.
There's a couple comments coming in on the Facebook page. First of all, the person who said that it was God's timing that got you into this work is saying that it's just good information that you're handing out. So I knew as soon as I met you, I'm like, I need to get her on this program. But there's another question that comes in. It says, a comment says, this is so interesting. The conversation raises the question, is it actually true that Black people don't have equal access to capital, or do we simply not know how to qualify? Do you see unfair lending practices as well?
Oh, absolutely. I see them. I worked for the lending group and I had $10, $15 million clients. And I couldn't get a client that needed a $10 million project done. I couldn't get them funded. And so the rules are very stringent and they're a lot more stringent. So oftentimes bankers will ask me, well, what do you want us to do? What should we be doing to help the community? I said, stop measuring us by the same rod that you're measuring them. White people have had 400 years of entrepreneurship. Black people legally have had 60 years of entrepreneurship. We cannot measure up to the measuring stick because it's not equal. We haven't had the same amount of time in this game. So therefore, the knowledge level is not the same. And the law prevents lenders and bankers from educating entrepreneurs. And so there's been this closed mouth mentality, and legally and rightfully so, because we know the more information would not come to our community, it would stay within that community. So they're not allowed. And that's why I stepped out of being a branch manager, because I was trying to help the entrepreneur get qualified. Technically, they can't do that. they'll be in serious trouble.
So that's something I didn't know, that what you just said, that banks can't educate. So you stopped being a loan officer at a bank in order to educate. So it's almost, I think, again, I'm sort of cheating because I've had lots of conversations with you and with lots of other people around this. I think it's kind of both, right? It's definitely both.
Yes, it's
that there's definitely, there are unfair lending practices. Let's just go ahead and let's say that. But I think there is a certain amount of, like you said, if there's only 60 years of knowledge versus 400 years of knowledge, that there is definitely an opportunity for education, and which is why I wanted to get you on to talk about your program, because I know that you do take these steps to educate about how to get the books right, or how to get so that on paper you can walk into a bank and get a loan. I know
we've got people walking into banks and getting loans strictly, and the banks are saying, where did you learn that? Who taught you that? Where did you get that information? Because they're not used to seeing us prepared. That's the problem. Preparation. When we are entrepreneurs, on Friday we were an average employee, not in management, not in leadership, not an executive, not a vice president or CEO. But on Monday, when we become an entrepreneur, we are all of the other. CEO, VP, director, we're all of that. The knowledge gap is what is keeping us from being funded. If you've never sat in the seat of a position where you've had to make those types of decisions, the money management side of the business is where we're getting killed. I knew it. I lived it. I walked through it. Hey, money alone is not the answer. Knowing what to do with money is the answer. And that's the missing gap. That's why we call it entrepreneurial financial literacy, because what you do as an entrepreneur is totally polar opposite to what you do in your personal life. But no one is teaching us that. So we're trying to run businesses with cash and do our personal life on credit. And it's polar opposite.
Should be the other way around.
Opposite. Totally the other way around.
Build a business credit in order to get more credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you never run a business on cash. You run it on capital, never on cash.
So now I knew this half hour was going to go quickly. I knew it was going to go quickly. I have put the Black Mastermind website in the chat. I want to drop in this road to success. You've got the Success Summit. So I want to give you a couple seconds to talk about that.
Okay. So December 16, 17, 18. We are graduating our 6th group of entrepreneurs. We've trained over 135 entrepreneurs on this journey. And now when we have students complete our program, we graduate them. It is a 3-day event. It's a conference and summit wrapped up in the graduation. December 16th is our meet and greet. December 17th is our breakout training sessions. December 17th, the night, is our African King and Queen Award Dinner. We are now awarding our alumni that come out of the program. We have like 3 millionaires we've created, and we've had 9 entrepreneurs receive funding. We want to acknowledge their success. And then on Sunday morning, we graduate the students that have completed the program. Once they complete the program, they are officially Black Masterminds. They stay in the Black Mastermind organization, and every month we do development, we do mindset development, business strategies, government contracting, minority supplier. We are putting entrepreneurs on the pathway so that they're not just running a business, but they're owning a company, and they're structuring the financial side of their organization so that they can do the things an entrepreneur should be able to do. Number 1, pay themselves. Number 2, create opportunities for other people. Number 3, create wealth. Number 4, become an investor. Number 5, impact your community.
Awesome.
And it all starts with the boot camp. So we're opening registration for the boot camp. Now, can I squeeze this in? Because we have scholarships available for any entrepreneur in Kansas, not just in Wyandotte County. We have the Empower Loan Fund for Wyandotte County, but we have scholarships to put entrepreneurs in the seat of the class. If you are interested in taking the boot camp class, I'm going to shoot this out to you real quick. You need to go to bit.ly, bit.ly/bootcamp BC 2023 waitlist. bit.ly/BC 2023 waitlist.
Is it BC or boot camp spelled out?
BC. That will put you on our wait list. We have 40 scholarships from our grant we received from the Kansas Health Foundation.
Wait, what is it one more time? bit.ly
/BC, capital B, capital C, 2023, capital W, AIT, capital L, IST. Because bit.lys are very particular. It has to be same structure in the layout. So that's BC, Bootcamp Waitlist. And so that information, we have 40 scholarships for entrepreneurs in Kansas, and we are open for any city, Black entrepreneurs in the state of Kansas that really are committed to their entrepreneurial journey, because it is a serious boot camp. And we just had our students tell us yesterday they still are getting over that workout. It is a financial boot camp workout.
Right.
And
I put it in the chat. I think it's got me back to a blackbusiness.com. Join the wait list.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Perfect. And so we're committed to our community and growing financially successful Black entrepreneurs. Awesome.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate this so much. I agree. The comments in the chat that this conversation is important. Thank you for sharing the information. I agree. I knew that as soon as I met you. I thought, holy mackerel. I don't have much of a platform, but I will try to amplify your work as much as I can. I'm a huge believer in if we find someone who's doing something and we can help out, we should help out. Like the last thing I'm going to do is try to put a stumbling block in your way. So if any way I can help you, please let me know. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks for people who showed up in the chat. And I will see everybody next week. Again, we're going to talk with Kesey Williams from AltCamp, more just continuing the conversation about capital. But I knew that Dr. Watson's segment was something that was much needed. I needed to amplify your message as much as I could.
Thank you, Stacey, for this opportunity to share with everyone. We are here to serve the Black entrepreneurial community. So reach out to us. No matter what, we'll get this information to the community that really needs it the most. And that's all right.
Thank you very much. All right, everybody. We'll see you next Monday.